All right, guys. So there's a lot going on in this world of IBM Maximo. And a couple years ago, they announced the Maximo Application Suite. And that was a version 8. And end of June this year, 2024, they announced Maximo Application Suite 9. And so this application suite platform is the common platform and basis for all of the business application delivery. And as we look at that over time, what that means is an ability to scale for very large global organizations and scale effectively, cost effectively. It also, ironically, introduces an opportunity for mid-sized organizations to enter at a cost-effective price point and grow. And there's a lot of detail behind this. It's insanely complex, and there are very few people in the world who understand this. Frankly, yes, in the world, literally. So Banetti is fortunate to have on board Tom Mahon. Spent 28 years in PSTI, MRO Software, IBM, and fortunately we have him at Banetti now. And Tom has an incredible understanding of the application suite, Maximo historically, where it's going, and why it actually fits anything from a small to a large organization, and how to generate your return on investment out of the platform. And when we combine that with what Banetti has been doing for the past 20 years in terms of providing that ultimate concierge service to you to ensure that you have the best experience possible, these two things together are what make us successful and what make you successful. So look forward to your comments and thoughts on this, but let's talk to Tom and see what he has to say. At some point we'll get this right. Apparently we figured it out for what?
It's been 30 years now.
Yeah.
30 years of working with Maximo, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Since version 2, which was the first client-server-based version of Maximo, we installed on Novell network servers and had to use the SQL-based database engine for years. And that was where we started with Maximo.
Is that why you sent me the Novell class?
Yep. You had to learn how to set up the network infrastructure to run this. And we used computers that cost $45,000, $50,000 for servers that were all the way up to 130 megabytes of disk space and 3 or 4 gigabytes of RAM, if you can believe that.
Oh, megabytes.
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 Megabytes of RAM.
That's only true. 1,000-fold error.
Yeah. Got it. Way off. And then we upgraded and upgraded and upgraded. And about the year, what was it? Year 1999 or so, we started going to the web-based version 5, which was half web-based. All the administrative modules were still DOS-based. Then from there, we went to version 6, which was a wonderful experience because they completely re-architected major sections of the database. So the upgrades on that one were by far and away the most difficult. Version 7 started to really hit its groove and really solidify the types of capabilities we need. Then they decided to re-architect the whole thing and put it onto this Linux Red Hat OpenShift and containerization, Kubernetes, Dockers, whatever you want to call it. Totally new architecture.
Is that like cricket terminology or something?
It's what seems to be the trend within the IT space, to go containers. But because of that, IBM can now sit and just add more containers for more functionality without having to change the underlying architecture every time we go install a new product. All these products can be set up to integrate and talk to each other instead of all being developed onto a single code base. It allows you to use much more efficient tools for the different functionality that companies are looking for in our space. So there is some merit to it, but there's a significant transition here to get to this new architecture for our client base. And that's where we're going to be spending a lot of time here in the next couple of years.
So I'm thinking that makes sense, but let me confirm what I'm hearing. So on the one hand, we're running out of capacity sticking in the Windows world, right? Or we're really pushing the limits, and by going into the Red Hat OpenShift and the way it's deployed with the containers, we've created a future-proof, to an extent, deployment model that not only allows for Maximo to grow extensively on that platform, but as things like Tririga and other, right now what we would call software brands, effectively, to come onto that common application suite platform. And you have the container type, the sizing, the server power behind it to allow for that growth, so that you're not constantly re-engineering your infrastructure for the world that's coming over the next 10 to 20 years.
That is all very, very accurate. And you combine that with the fact that many organizations have a cloud-first strategy, and the cloud architecture is much, much more amenable to these new containerization technologies. So your scalability, your ability to order resources, your ability to share resources across multiple applications based on demand from end users and volumes of transactions, these are all in alignment of that cloud/hybrid cloud strategy that allows you to scale these applications much more cost effectively as you grow as an organization. So you blend all those factors together, and that's what IBM's riding on. They're not just looking at how do I make Maximo better, but how do I make the delivery of major enterprise applications more efficient in a cloud-based world. And given that Maximo is a significant enterprise application that organizations use to run their business and keep their business operating cost effectively, it has to be a key component of that overall strategy. And these technologies, as you described, are scalable and can grow to make that work.
Very interesting. Sounds like, so when we start looking at the application suite, not just Maximo, which is now managed, right?
Right.
We look at the application suite more broadly and what it brings to an enterprise in terms of business benefit. This is, relatively speaking, a speed bump.
Yes, it
right?
is.
And you got to get over it, right? You're going to have to slow down. It's going to be slightly disruptive. But if you are an enterprise that's growing, that is looking at the ability, you're looking at being the billion plus revenue, you're going to invest one way or another. If you invest now, you've created a foundation that starts returning on that investment now, and literally will pay for itself.
Exactly. And we're seeing that with some of our customers. We've got one in particular that does not have any Red Hat operating environment components installed anywhere, but they need a product that's first down the chute because they want to transition their entire application infrastructure to a common operating platform. They set up security once. They set up the containerization model once. They use industry-leading technology across the board. So they partner with Microsoft on the cloud and the delivery of the common platform. They start installing the first component as Maximo. Now, if you look at the cost of that first component, it may be prohibitive, but they're taking the long view of it that we're going to learn this thing using Maximo because we know the Maximo product is stable, it's robust, it meets our business needs. We're not trying to re-architect our business. We're just trying to re-architect the underlying infrastructure and focus on that. But the lessons learned from that focus on the infrastructure will be applicable to all the future applications they want to bring into that environment. So we're going to bite the bullet, spend a little more on Maximo, not just thinking about what it takes to run the Maximo that they've had for the last 20 years, but what it takes to set up a platform for growth and for expansion across their enterprise and all of its applications.
That's interesting. Both of us, having been in this world for 30 years, We've seen the, kind of like PC based Maximo go to a more robust, eventually, go from client server to web based. And with each iteration, the management overhead of that system architecture changes. And what we're seeing IBM do at this point is it sounds like really it's preemptive.
Yes.
In recognizing that this is going to get so big and it's going to get so complex that attempting to manage this with the current architecture style is quickly going to spool up to unwieldy costs and just tremendous number of man hours. Whereas if we go to the Red Hat OpenShift, yeah, you're going to look at it as that speed bump or that incremental cost now. But as your enterprise grows, as you are moving to global operations, and maybe if you're someone who's only in managing the facilities and you add in the operations side or only the operations side, operations production, bringing in facilities, bringing in distribution, now you're looking at a really small incremental cost because you've put yourself on a platform where it's rapidly extendable, call it on the fly almost, right? And so I'm just adding a percent or a tenth of a percent instead of looking at this. In the old world, we would often be looking at adding servers, right? So, and now we're just looking at micro increments of increase when we want to grow.
Right. And you're doing that by ordering cloud-based services, and the cloud services are supplementing your compute power underneath the covers, beneath that common operating platform. And you don't have to care how many CPUs, how many cores, how much memory, how these are distributed across multiple boxes. Are you running one box too hot, the other one too light? That's all taken care of underneath the covers between the cloud environment and the common operating platform. And if you go back to the common operating platform, Red Hat OpenShift has been around for many years. The first thing IBM did was throw a whole bunch of their development tools into one package, and they call that IBM's Cloud Pak for Data, Cloud Pak for Security. So they integrated those into a common delivery platform. Then the Maximo team picked that up and said, hey, we'll put Maximo on top of that. So the tools that we build Maximo on are now delivered on that extended common operating platform called Cloud Pak for Data. So you want your Watson tools? Well, they're on CP4D. You want all of the data access tools you need for Internet of Things? We've got them. They're all on this common platform. All we need to do as Maximo is tie the pieces together. And now to take this to the next level, IBM's initial strategy was a common platform for Maximo, and then separately a common platform for Tririga. Now they're taking it a step further and say, why don't we just have one common platform? So IBM's former control desk for IT asset management, Tririga, Maximo, and others are all being put onto this common operating platform. The customer gets a significantly simplified licensing model. There's one part number. They order that part, and then they can decide which of these components they need when. And if they're using more of it than they used to, they just order more of that same part number. So it's very scalable, simplifies all sorts of things across the organization, and allows the customer to really focus on their business needs and business value, because IBM and all of the people that are supporting those products are taking care of all of the technical architecture under the covers, behind the scenes, on the cloud, and letting the business focus on making money for the business.
That's really interesting. And so the part I'm honing in on in my head here is you said the control desk, Tririga, Maximo, which is now managed, right? And the reason that hits me really hard is because, when IBM purchased Tririga, we went out to Vegas, we got training, we got all trained up, and then we realized we have no ability to sell or execute on this, right? So we put a lot of money into it and realized that it's a completely different buyer, it's a completely different business case, and It's a completely different platform. So we can't even go in there and go, yeah, you're not going to save anything. It's a whole new business case, a whole new expense. But from what you just said, what it sounds like is that by going to this application suite, common operating platform, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but all of these various apps become, to an extent, plugins into that common operating platform. And so I really do have some cost savings. There's an effectiveness in adopting apps that plug into that platform. And so now my Maximo and Tririga, which we know a lot of customers have both, and they're currently disjointed. Suddenly they're looking at it and going, you know what, it makes sense to make these things work in unison now. Let's get these things talking to each other because it's a common platform. There's a common cost basis to it, and the data we can share between them is now going to, instead of us looking at a multi-$100,000 integration effort, we're seeing real ROI out of this. And then you add control desk, and from the IT side, now you have serious money returned.
Yes, and to your original point, it is becoming that simple. There is a screen, a panel, if you will, where you click on which of these modules you want installed, and the common operating platform launches those modules. It's going to ask for resources. You need to plan that. Okay, I can't get away from that. But once you allocate the appropriate resources, it's going to launch all that install and put it up. And IBM is actually delivering the integration between all these different modules on that platform. So again, you get to focus on business value. But the other thing to look at is when you have all these separate applications, the software Maximo, the database server, the WebSphere, the operating system, when they're all on different versions, you have version currency challenges on keeping them all in sync. Okay, but when we deliver a Maximo Application Suite version 9, everything is on a single version currency. So when version 9.1 includes Tririga, it works on the same platform, the same database, the same WebSphere, all of those other parts of the technical stack. Version currency is now IBM's responsibility instead of the customer's responsibility. And for all future versions, IBM keeps it all in sync and all working on a common platform. So there's a tremendous savings down the road with keeping these systems in sync and keeping all your infrastructure current, which has a huge effect on security, performance, and cost savings with doing these upgrades. So there's a lot of value in this strategy. It just takes time to dig a little deeper than the slide that you look at and say, oh, that's Red Hat? We don't know anything about that. What are we going to do? I'm terrified. Well, let's think about this for the long term. And we don't just look at today's costs and tomorrow's costs. We left the total cost of ownership and really understand this is a fundamental improvement in the direction we're going to take for our IT infrastructure for major enterprise applications.
You shouldn't tell me so many things at once because I only remember two. But I'm going to focus on the two I do remember. One, you said the word database, and it hit me. It hit me because we've had a few customers over the past few years that have made the decision to go to DB2 because the database license is included with the Maximo license for Maximo use, right?
Yep.
And while they might have been looking at a $50,000 to $100,000 project to migrate to DB2, which we have a tool for, which helps that, right?
Right.
That's important because that can be challenging. But over the period of sometimes a single year, oftentimes, I think every time 2 years or less, they were able to show a savings in their database licensing just by a conversion. So that's important right there. And if I'm looking at Control Desk, Tririga, and Maximo, that could justify the cost of your move.
Yes, keep everything current, keep it all on a common platform, and the licensing is included. I've had customers tell me their database licensing costs more than their Maximo licensing. So moving to one that's included with Maximo is a no-brainer, if you ask me. That's pretty straightforward. So yeah, more and more customers need to be looking at that as their strategy going forward. And there's less and less involvement because they've moved all sorts of capabilities into Maximo itself. We don't have to write database procedures anymore. We're not doing triggers. We're not doing direct database reads. We've got application scripting. We've got the integration framework is very, very robust to move data in and out of Maximo. We can move all of those things you're accustomed to doing into the user interface. So the actual tool that's used to store the data is becoming less and less relevant.
So, as an IBM business partner, one of the things we do a lot of is help customers understand what their return on investment would look like, right?
Yep.
All kinds of calculators, spreadsheets, right? So what I'm hearing is that there's a whole new layer of ROI opportunity where, you know, in the individual silos, so to speak, of Control Desk, Tririga, Maximo, we would be looking at very use case specific scenarios, right?
Right.
Which typically drove it, right? That was good. But now we have a whole new layer of opportunity in terms of platform administration, the common operating platform, and tell me, I might have heard this, I might be wrong. Does it look like there's a future where our app points could be shared across these?
They are. Yes. That's what's coming. That's what's, I think here in the next few months is we're going to see that the app point pool is one pool. And that's what you're going to see is we just license our capacity based on app points, and whatever you want to use them for, that's what they're there for. So there's a lot of opportunity there to leverage these capabilities. At the end of the day, though, let's keep in mind, we're all about enterprise asset management. We're all about helping people get more efficient in their business, to have their equipment uptime, their reliability, their work performance, their inventory. You know, we focus to a degree in this transition on these new technologies, but at the end of the day, the real value of pushing these products out there is what we need to focus on as a business. So we'll help you through the transition to this new technology while you get to focus much more on the business value and making this thing really help your company get more efficient in the marketplace, which is really what the goal is, right?
Well, so restating what you just said, foundationally, is let's return time to the technician to do what they're best at.
The technician,
right?
And even the IT guy, let's let him focus on how he helps his business get better instead of having to spend an enormous amount of money on the underlying technology that supports these applications.
Put a mobile app in the hands of the tech that work the way they work,
Yep.
right? Works with them, works for them.
Yep.
They'll give us better data. With better data, we have better prediction capacity, right?
Yep.
So as we move into then, right now we effectively we haven't talked about applications, but I know you and I we're really talking about base Maximo, right?
Right.
But within that application suite, when we start to look at, there's the monitor, there's the health, there's the predict, and all these other things, that base data is where all of those other apps become powerful. And I think that's true.
It is. It is. You got to start from somewhere. You got to have the basic transactions. You got to know about your assets. You got to know what they cost. You got to know about your inventory. You got to know about your people, your resources. All of that needs to be available. Then we can start to get real smart about what to do with that information. And that's where we can drive real value going forward, expanding those capabilities. It's a terrific setup. It's going to take some time, some adjustment. I'm glad we got a team of people who can help customers through this. I think it's going to be a lot of value for customers over the next couple decades. That's our time
Huge
horizon.
opportunity.
Let's make it successful. Thank you, sir. Good talking to you. Let's hope we have another 30 years to do this together.